Preparing for the AAP exam? Looking for some tips and tricks and hints to be able to help you? Well, ePay Resources, we've got that ready for you. Now, what are some of the things that you can do to prepare for the AAP exam and help remember this? Well, you probably know the 2-5-2 rule, right? Well, that's 2 days for returns. Now, that's the administrative returns. And then there's 5 days to do the dishonored return, and then 2 days to do the contested dishonored return. So again, who does what? We have 2 days for the RDFI to do an administrative return. We've got 5 days that the ODFI can then do a dishonored return, and we've got 2 days that a contested dishonored return can be created by the RDFI. Now, when it comes to the returns, people have asked me, how do you just know all these return codes? Well, if you're preparing for the exam, there's certain ones you should just know, 1 through 10, because hey, they're the top 10. I would also know 14 and 15, well, 16 doesn't hurt either. I would throw in R23, 29, 31. Those are really important codes. Those are the main ones that we use most of the time. Beyond those, there are others that definitely need to get some, understanding, and the understanding is the key thing. And people will tell me, a code, and I'll be able to tell them, well, I know it's in reference to this, and then if I haven't remembered it. And one of the ways I remember that is, for example, if a return reason code starts in the 40s, well, what was happening in the 40s? Well, in the 40s, we had World War II taking place. We had a lot of government intervention. And that's why you will find, it's really not why, but it's how I remember, that return reason codes that are in the 40s, well, those are for federal government agency use only. Then we go to the 50s. Well, what happened in the 50s? The 50s actually was pretty big for the Czech world, because that's where we got micro. And micro was created in the 50s. So when it comes to the 50s, those are for RCKs. Because remember, an RCK was actually a check that went through and came back and now gets converted over to the ACH network. Because of that, we have return reason codes in the 50s dedicated just for RCK. Well, then what about the 60s? Well, in the 60s, I can tell you, my grandfather used to say, hippies brought dishonor to this country in the 60s. Now, that's what he used to say, okay? Now, what does that mean? Well, the 60s, return reason codes in the 60s, including 70, we have to go all the way to R70, are for dishonored returns. Those codes in the 60s have to do with dishonored returns. And then what happened in the 70s? Well, in the 70s, we had Nixon saying, I am not a crook. So Nixon contested that he dishonored the country. So in the 70s, we have the contested dishonored returns, and that's starting with 1971, R71. I started in 1971. So we got R71 through R76 to be able to cover those. And then finally, we go to the 80s. And now what happened in the 80s? The Berlin Wall came down. I remember this quite well. When the Berlin Wall came down, it opened up international communication. It opened up a gateway of international communication. So in the 80s, we had the Berlin Wall open up a gateway of communication, and that's why our return reason codes have to deal with IATs and gateway returns. So just a couple little tips and tricks to help you when it comes to studying and preparing for your AAP exam and knowing a little bit more about return reason codes. If you've got other tips and tricks that can help others understand what to do to pass the AAP exam, please put those in the comments. Let us know so that we can share them with everyone. Good luck on your test this year. Look forward to seeing you get your AAP.